Alright, it'll come as no surprise to most of you that I've been farming the lab all day yesterday. To my own surprise, I shelved my usual farming builds in favor of my ranger, and as you can see in the footage, I'm not even running a druid. That's because Untamed has an incredible toolkit for the Mad King's Labyrinth. We have super speed, a teleport, a long range dash, and we can tag enemies at a 1200 range by either targeting them or even our own allies. And that's not even all. We can spread a ton of boons around us so that we can get kill credit for all of the work our allies are putting in. So we're effectively double dipping and making sure to not miss any of those trick or treat bags. And we have something else that's really important as well and not always mentioned in guides. We have access to lingering AoE on extremely short cooldowns. See, when you're running around, it's all about tagging everything at range as fast as you can. But when you're opening green doors, a lot of enemies will near instantly die when a lot of players are using traps. Well, we have a solution for all of that as well. But before I get to the exact tools, let's take a look at our traits first. We want to focus on two things mainly when we're picking these, and that is spreading boons to our allies while actively avoiding might, as well as adding any quality of life such as condition cleanses or super speed for ourselves. The reason we don't want to spread might is so that we can keep everyone's damage low and avoid enemies dying too quickly. That's also the reason why we don't want to use a Warhorn. Our trait lines of choice will be Nature Magic, Beast Mastery and Untamed. Nature Magic will allow us to spread regen, protection and vigor to allies around us, as well as offering us condition cleanses every single time we dodge, which we can do often thanks to having vigor. Beast Mastery will allow us to spread even more regen, as well as swiftness to allies around us every time we use a command skill. And will autocast Quickening Zephyr, granting us both quickness and super speed every time we swap our pet. Do note that you need to be in combat for this, but that shouldn't be much of an issue. Untamed is going to give us even more condition cleanses every time we or our pet unleashes, and will provide permanent quickness to allies around us. When it comes to our utilities, we'll be picking up Perilous Gift for our heal and Forest's Fortification for our elite skill. Both of these will grant you super speed when using them while you're unleashed yourself, or stability when your pet is unleashed. So when running around, you want to use them when you're unleashed and on doors when your pet is unleashed, so you don't get knocked around by bosses. Next, we want Quickening Zephyr for even more super speed and Unnatural Traversal for a teleport. Both of these can be swapped out for commands if you want to spread more buffs to your allies thanks to one of our Beast Mastery traits. But I prefer these as it has allowed me to easily keep up even with Daredevils and Engineers. Your final utility should be a command. I was experimenting with mutate conditions in the footage, but we already have enough condition cleanse baked into the build. And as mentioned, commands will spread boons to our allies, allowing us to get credit for the work they're putting in as well. If you want to be a real MVP, use Search and Rescue if you're joining a run that is killing every boss. A lot of people tend to go into downstate on bosses, and Search and Rescue will teleport one of them to you and will automatically res them. If you want a lower cooldown ability, then Protect Me should be your pick. As you might have noticed, I am using a Phoenix and a new Aether Hunter as pets. Other good options are both Wyverns, an Iboga, Jacaranda and quite a few others actually. All of these have one thing in common. They have a channel's AoE, which will make our life much easier when we're opening green doors. Both these channeled AoEs and Enveloping Haze when unleashed will persist for quite some time. So if you use these when enemies spawn on green doors, you're bound to get credit for all of those that spawn, which might not always be easy otherwise depending on the group you're running with. Not shown in the footage, but another alternative would be running pets such as the Siege Turtle, Blue Moa, Fernhound and so on, as these can also grant boons to anyone around us, and this might be the better option if you're not doing boss doors. That brings me to our gear, and we're running Double Staff, which has an incredible toolkit for farming the lab. Solar Beam, the auto attack, pulses damage and healing to up to 3 targets in a 1200 range, which means that you'll be able to target the furthest enemy and get credit for anything you hit, including allies, between yourself and your target. And if you have an ally that is consistently running ahead of the group, you could even just target them, and the auto attack will make sure you get kill credit for anything in between, as well as anything they're tagging as well. It is kind of ridiculous how good this weapon is for the auto attack alone, but that's not everything. Roughly every 9 seconds, we can execute an ambush attack when we unleash ourselves. Staff's ambush pulses damage and healing 6 times, as well as granting protection in a 360 range around us to up to 5 targets. And thanks to our Let Loose trait, which spreads quickness, our ambush also resets whenever we swap weapons. So you'll want to unleash to trigger the first ambush, and once done, swap weapons and trigger a second ambush. That is 12 pulses of damage, healing and buffs every 9 to 10 seconds. If you're already convinced by Staff, it actually gets much better. Astral Wisp, your Staff too, attaches a wisp to an ally that will pulse healing and damage 4 times in a 300 radius around them and has the same range as your auto attack. So slap this on an ally that is running in front of the pack and you're good to go. Staff 3, Ancestral Grace, is a long-range dash and will buff allies around us as well, and Staff 4 will send out vines that will cure certain conditions on your allies and immobilize enemies. Finally, we have Staff 5, which creates a field that turns enemy projectiles into healing and grants allies regen when they pass through. This is our shortest range skill, which still sits at 900 range. In summary, every single thing Staff does will get you kill credit in the lab, and almost all of it is at a massive 1200 range. Maybe it's because the build is still new and fresh to me, but I actually didn't want to go back to my Daredevil or Mirage after trying this out. Because remember, even every time we swap pets or use some of our utilities, we're also buffing allies or gaining super speed. And then we still need to add all of our pet skills to the equation. When it comes to gear, try not to equip any offensive stats. Extra concentration or boon duration is a nice quality of life, so feel free to implement those as much as you can. I literally didn't select any specific stats on my armor for this footage, and I only added runes of radiance for extra vitality and 25% increased boon duration. If you have legendary armor or the luxury of getting whatever set you want, something like Givers doesn't have any offensive stats and will increase your healing power, toughness and concentration. Same goes for my weapons in the footage. Well, maybe not exactly the same. I only have one legendary staff, my second one has Harrier stats, which is the only power stat on all of my armor you're seeing here. Both of them have sigils of fire and a sigil of concentration socketed. The latter will increase your boon duration by another 10%, and Sigil of Fire causes a flame blast whenever you're critically hitting an enemy. This isn't really necessary, but it's pretty fun when it procs. If you have an Ascended or Legendary Amulet, make sure to equip a Magic Find enrichment. Without banners, I'm sitting at over 500% Magic Find, which I can get up to 646% if people plop down banners or other consumables. Even though we have tons of super speed, a teleport and a long range dash, I still opted to take a relic of speed with me, making me run faster when under the effects of swiftness. If you have all of that, you should never fall behind a group. In fact, you're going to be able to keep up with Daredevils and Engineers while having the tagging range of a Mirage and the buffing capacity of a Herald. I only use my teleport rarely, mainly when I was falling behind because I was carving pumpkins for the achievement or when running into an obstacle, which kinda happens more than I'd like to admit. And that's it, my new favorite tagging build. It has got incredible range, buffs, AoE, mobility, basically every single thing you want in the lab. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask them down below. And as always, hit those like and subscribe buttons and let's get closer to that 5k.